After 60, the body becomes a historian. It remembers every meal, every habit, every quiet inflammation that once went unnoticed. An egg on your plate is no longer just protein and fat. It is a biochemical conversation with an aging gut, a slower liver, a metabolism that now values harmony over excess. What matters is not only what you eat, but what you eat together. Because certain combinations ask the body to solve problems it no longer solves easily. This content is for educational purposes only and reflects general nutritional principles, not individual medical advice. Responses to food combinations vary based on health conditions, medications, and personal tolerance. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional or registered dietitian before making significant dietary changes, especially if you have a whey. Chronic conditions or digestive concerns. Eggs are often described as one of nature's most complete foods. And from a biological standpoint, that reputation is well earned. They contain sulfur-based amino acids that support detoxification pathways, choline that nourishes the aging brain, and fats designed to be absorbed slowly and efficiently. But digestion is not only about what a food contains, it is also about the chemical environment in which that food is processed. When eggs are eaten alongside raw spinach or other high-oxalate leafy greens, the body is asked to manage a pairing that can quietly work against its own efficiency, especially after the age of 60. Raw spinach is rich in oxalates, naturally occurring compounds that plants use for self-defense. In the human body, oxalates can bind to minerals such as calcium, magnesium, and iron, forming complexes that pass through the digestive system without being absorbed. In younger individuals, strong stomach acid, robust enzyme output, and efficient kidney filtration often compensate for this effect. With aging, however, mineral absorption becomes more fragile, and the kidneys become less tolerant of excess oxalate load. When eggs are eaten with raw spinach, the minerals present in both foods may be partially locked away, reducing the nutritional return of the meal while increasing the metabolic work required to process it. There's also a subtle digestive timing issue. Eggs stimulate the release of bile and digestive enzymes geared toward fat and protein breakdown. Raw spinach, by contrast, contains tough plant fibers and compounds that resist digestion, requiring prolonged mechanical and enzymatic effort in the gut. When these two demands arrive together, digestion can slow, leading to fermentation in the intestines. After 60, this often manifests as bloating, heaviness, or discomfort that seems mild but accumulates over time, gradually influencing gut health and systemic inflammation. Another layer lies in sulfur metabolism. Eggs are sulfur-rich. Sulfur compounds are processed in pathways that intersect with kidney function and acid-base balance. Oxalates add an additional renal burden, and when these loads coincide regularly, the kidneys may be pushed to manage more waste than necessary. This does not create immediate illness, but it can contribute to subtle fatigue, fluid imbalance, or joint stiffness that many older adults mistakenly attribute to aging itself rather than dietary interaction. Cooking changes this relationship significantly. Heat reduces oxalate levels in spinach and softens plant fibers, making the digestive process more cooperative. This is why lightly cooked greens tend to pair more gently with eggs than raw leaves do. The issue is not spinach as a food, nor eggs as a food, but the biological friction created when raw oxalates and sulfur-rich proteins meet in a body that now prioritizes efficiency over resilience. As we age, food becomes less about abundance and more about alignment. Meals that once felt harmless may begin to ask too much of slower systems. Understanding this allows us to eat with awareness rather than restriction, choosing combinations that support absorption, reduce internal workload, and respect the quiet intelligence of an aging body that thrives when nourishment arrives in harmony. Tomatoes are often celebrated for their brightness, their lycopene content, and their association with heart health, and eggs are praised for their protein density and neurological support. Individually, both foods have earned their place in a thoughtful diet. The complication emerges when they are combined in large or frequent amounts, particularly after the age of 60, when the internal chemistry that governs digestion and inflammation becomes more sensitive to contrast and load. The aging digestive system is less adaptable to sharp shifts in acidity. Tomatoes introduce exactly that shift. Tomatoes are naturally acidic and also contain compounds that can stimulate histamine release. In a younger stomach, strong gastric acid and fast emptying can manage this without consequence. With age, stomach acid production often declines, even as the lining of the stomach and esophagus becomes more vulnerable. Eggs, especially whole eggs, require a stable acidic environment for proper protein breakdown and fat emulsification. When tomatoes enter the stomach at the same time, they can disrupt this balance, leading to incomplete digestion. The result is not dramatic pain, but a low-level discomfort that may show up as reflux, chest warmth, or a feeling of pressure after meals. Histamine sensitivity is another quiet factor. Many people over 60 experience reduced efficiency in breaking down histamine due to lower activity of diamine oxidase, the enzyme responsible for this process. Tomatoes can contribute to histamine load, and eggs may amplify the body's response by slowing gastric emptying. Together, they can increase the likelihood of symptoms such as flushing, joint stiffness, headaches, or restless sleep. These responses are often misinterpreted as unrelated issues, when in reality, they are subtle signals of biochemical overload. Inflammation adds a deeper layer to this interaction. Aging tissues are more prone to inflammatory signaling, even in the absence of overt disease. Acidic foods can influence inflammatory pathways, especially in individuals with underlying joint sensitivity or cardiovascular concerns. When eggs and tomatoes are eaten together frequently, the digestive stress they create may translate into systemic effects, including increased oxidative burden and immune activation. This does not mean the foods are harmful, but that their combination may amplify internal noise at a stage of life when the body seeks calm. There is also a timing and quantity dimension. Small amounts of cooked tomato, especially when consumed separately or balanced with other foods, tend to be better tolerated. Problems arise when large portions of tomato-based sauces or raw tomatoes are paired with eggs on a regular basis. The cumulative effect is what matters, not a single meal. Over time, this pairing can train the body into a state of digestive vigilance, where meals are followed by fatigue instead of nourishment. As the body ages, it becomes more honest in its feedback. It no longer masks mild incompatibilities. Two separate foods that compete for digestive priority is not about fear, but about listening. When eggs are allowed to digest in a stable, low-rotation environment, and tomatoes are enjoyed in contexts that respect their acidity, the body responds with ease rather than resistance, and health becomes less about correction and more about quiet balance. Potatoes are often framed as comfort food, something familiar and grounding, and eggs are seen as a reliable source of strength and repair. Together, they form a classic pairing that many people have eaten their entire lives without question. Yet after the age of 60, the body's internal priorities change. What once felt energizing can begin to feel subtly draining. The issue is not taste or tradition, but the metabolic signals these two foods send when they arrive together in an aging system. Eggs communicate a very specific message to the body. They ask for a focus on protein digestion, fat emulsification, and slow, steady nutrient absorption. This process relies on bile flow, pancreatic enzymes, and a relatively stable blood sugar environment. Potatoes, particularly when fried, mashed, or otherwise refined, send a different message entirely. They are rapidly converted into glucose, prompting insulin release and a shift toward immediate energy handling. In younger bodies, these competing signals are resolved efficiently. With age, insulin sensitivity often declines, and the body struggles to balance these simultaneous demands. When eggs and potatoes are eaten together, the digestive system must decide which priority comes first. Blood sugar regulation tends to dominate, pulling resources toward glucose management. This can leave protein and fat digestion less complete, increasing the likelihood of fermentation and post-meal sluggishness. Many older adults notice that meals containing this combination lead not to sustained energy, but to heaviness, sleepiness, or a mental fog that lingers for hours. These sensations are often dismissed as normal aging when they are more accurately signs of metabolic overload. Fried or heavily processed potatoes intensify the problem. The added fats, often oxidized through high-heat cooking, further complicate lipid metabolism. Eggs already provide fats that need careful handling, and adding damaged oils increases oxidative stress. The liver, which plays a central role in fat processing and detoxification, must work harder to manage this influx. After 60, liver efficiency naturally declines, making it less tolerant of meals that combine high glycemic load with complex fat digestion. There is also an inflammatory dimension. Rapid spikes in blood sugar are known to promote inflammatory signaling, even in people without diabetes. When this occurs alongside incomplete protein digestion, immune responses in the gut can be triggered. Over time, this may contribute to joint discomfort, vascular stiffness, or worsening insulin resistance. The effects are cumulative and quiet, unfolding over months and years rather than days. This does not mean potatoes or eggs should be feared. The issue lies in their form and pairing. Whole, minimally processed potatoes eaten separately from eggs allow the body to handle each task with clarity. Likewise, eggs paired with non-starchy vegetables support steadier digestion and metabolic balance. Aging is not about deprivation, but about refinement. As the body becomes less forgiving of mixed metabolic messages, it rewards meals that speak clearly and gently to its systems. By reducing combinations that force the body to multitask beyond its comfort, energy becomes more stable, digestion more peaceful. A nourishment more complete asterisk. As the body moves beyond 60, digestion becomes less about speed and more about precision. The systems that once adapted effortlessly to complex meals now operate with narrower margins. Enzyme production declines, stomach acid output often decreases, bile flow becomes less robust, and intestinal motility slows. None of this signals failure. It reflects a natural shift toward conservation. The aging body prefers clarity. When meals delivered to many conflicting digestive instructions at once, the result is not efficiency but quiet strain. Every food carries a metabolic message. Proteins ask for enzymatic breakdown. Fats require bile and careful emulsification. Carbohydrates demand glucose regulation, and certain plant compounds call for detoxification and excretion. In younger years, these messages can arrive simultaneously, without noticeable consequence. After 60, however, the digestive system no longer enjoys multitasking. When eggs are paired with foods that pull digestion in opposing directions, the body must choose where to allocate limited resources. And something is inevitably left incomplete. Incomplete digestion rarely announces itself loudly, it appears, as subtle bloating, increased gas, irregular bowel habits, or a persistent feeling of heaviness after eating. Over time, these signs may be accompanied by systemic effects such as fatigue, joint stiffness, or brain fog. The gut is deeply connected to immune regulation and inflammation, and when food lingers or ferments, immune cells are activated unnecessarily. This low-grade inflammation becomes part of the background noise of aging, often mistaken for inevitability. Rather than a response to dietary complexity, the gut microbiome adds another layer. With age, microbial diversity tends to decrease, making the ecosystem less resilient. Complex food combinations that promote fermentation can favor bacteria that produce inflammatory byproducts. When digested cleanly, support muscle maintenance and neurological health. When digestion is slowed by incompatible pairings, their benefits are partially lost. The microbial response may undermine the very nourishment they were meant to provide. Blood sugar regulation is also affected by digestive confusion. Meals that combine slow-digesting proteins with rapidly absorbed carbohydrates create unpredictable glucose curves. The pancreas must adjust insulin output repeatedly, and tissues that are already less sensitive to insulin respond poorly. This contributes to energy crashes and cravings that seem disconnected from food choices, but are deeply rooted in how those foods were combined. What emerges from this understanding is not a list of forbidden foods, but a philosophy of simplicity. Aging digestion thrives when meals have a clear dominant task. When eggs are eaten with foods that support fat digestion and stable glucose levels, the body can complete its work efficiently and quietly. When foods with competing demands are separated in time or balanced more thoughtfully, digestion becomes less of a battle and more of a rhythm. Listening to the body after 60 requires patience and humility. Signals that once could be ignored now carry meaning. By respecting the limits of digestive multitasking, we honor the body's intelligence and allow nourishment to do what it is meant to do, which is to sustain, repair, and support a life that has already carried us far and deserves to be treated with gentleness. Nutrition after 60 is often framed as a set of restrictions, a narrowing of choices driven by fear of disease or decline. But the deeper truth is more humane and more hopeful. The aging body is not asking for less food, it is asking for clearer conversations with food. Synergy becomes more important than volume, and how foods interact inside the body begins to matter more than how impressive they look on a plate. When this perspective shifts, eating transforms from control into cooperation. Food synergy is the science of compatibility. Certain nutrients are absorbed more efficiently together, while others compete for enzymes, transporters, or metabolic attention. In younger years, the body compensates for these conflicts with surplus energy and hormonal flexibility. After 60, that surplus is gone, and the cost of poor pairing becomes visible. Meals that once felt harmless now leave behind fatigue, inflammation, or digestive discomfort, not because the foods are bad, but because the body no longer wants to arbitrate internal conflicts. Eggs illustrate this principle clearly. They are dense with nutrients that support muscle integrity, cognitive function, and cellular repair. When paired with foods that stabilize blood sugar and support fat digestion, their benefits are amplified. When paired with foods that introduce acidity, rapid glucose spikes, or anti-nutrients, their value is diluted. The difference is not dramatic. In a single meal, but profound over time, health in later life is shaped less by occasional indulgence and more by daily patterns that either reduce or increase internal friction. Restriction often fails because it creates resistance. The mind rebels against long lists of forbidden foods, and eating becomes anxious rather than nourishing. Synergy offers a gentler framework. It does not demand elimination, but sequencing, preparation, and moderation. The same foods can exist in a diet, simply rearranged to respect the body's changing priorities. This approach aligns with how biology actually works, adapting rather than enforcing. There is also a psychological dimension. Eating with awareness restores trust between the individual and their body. Instead of overriding signals with rules, one begins to observe cause and effect. A meal that brings calm energy reinforces itself. A meal that brings heaviness teaches without punishment. Over time, intuition becomes informed by experience. And food choices feel less like decisions and more like responses. Compassion is central to this process. The body after 60 carries decades of service, resilience, and adaptation. It deserves meals that support rather than challenge it. Choosing compatible food combinations is a form of respect, a way of acknowledging that strength now lies in balance, not excess. This mindset reframes aging not as loss, but as refinement. When synergy guides eating, health becomes quieter. Energy stabilizes, digestion smooths, and inflammation recedes into the background. There is no dramatic transformation, no single superfood, only the steady accumulation of small decisions that reduce internal stress. In this simplicity, nourishment fulfills its original purpose, not to impress or stimulate, but to sustain life with clarity, dignity, and ease.